Hello and thank you for joining me again. Now, Lincolnshire abounds with stories of haunted airfields, and it's not surprising because by the end of the Second World War there were nearly 50 and more airmen died flying from Lincolnshire than any other county. I'm at the former RAF Wickenby, a historic World War II airfield. Today the control tower is a museum and a cafe, and that's where I'm heading. But first, a bit of history about the base. In 1941, farmland was requisitioned to build RAF Wickenby, a purpose-built Royal Air Force satellite station. By September 1942, 12 Squadron, based at nearby RAF Bimbrook, arrived at Wickenby, equipped with Wellington bombers. But by November 1942, the Wellingtons had been replaced by Avro Lancasters. As I mentioned, the control tower is now a museum and a cafe. But I only found out when I got here that there are still a few crumbling remains of the old base in adjacent woodlands. So, let's go and explore. I'm in the woods near the airfield, and this is obviously an old wartime building. Let's take a closer look. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you any information about this or anything from here on. I wasn't aware there was anything other than the control tower. Absolutely full of rubbish and odds and ends. And bees. So I'm not going in there. Another crumbling old building. Lots of rubbish strewn around. Now, I heard a strange noise in here, but thankfully it was just that crow. Now, as you can see, it must be used by a local farmer, judging by the old tyres. Now, beyond the copse is farmland, but you can still see evidence of the base. There's the old Nissan huts. Well, there might be more old buildings dotted around, but I haven't got the time or the inclination to look. I'm going back to the control tower, where hopefully the museum will be open, and I shall tell you some strange tales connected to RAF Wickenby. Now, I'm in the watchtower. I've been calling it a control tower all through the video. I must apologise. And as you can see, it's now a small museum to honour the servicemen who served at Wickenby during World War II. The museum opened in the 1990s, and there are many artefacts relating to the Lancaster bombers and their crews. Now, during a relatively short period of active service, 1,800 men of 12 and 626 squadrons bravely gave their lives on operations from RAF Wickenby, so it'll come as no surprise that there have been numerous sightings of ghostly airmen. One of the most bizarre and tragic ghosts is that of the headless cyclist. The story goes that a Lancaster bomber was taxiing down the runway when it lost control and decapitated an unfortunate man who was cycling past. his headless ghost is sometimes seen cycling near the runway. Now I'm sure that you won't be surprised to learn that the watchtower is said to be haunted. The figure of a ghostly airman has been seen in these rooms, and a member of staff told me that footsteps, whistling and other strange noises are heard in the tower when all is quiet. A shadowy figure is sometimes seen near the runway, and a man, presumed to be one of the airfield's ground crew, is seen running towards where the old hangars used to be and vanish into thin air. There is also the ghost of a RAF who tragically took her own life when her fiancé was killed in action. She is said to haunt one of the old buildings near the base. Her tragic death and that of the unfortunate cyclist, like many others, are recorded in the Wickenby Register. 626 Squadron was disbanded on the 14th of October 1945. The November of that year saw the last service flying from RAF Wickenby. After the war, the runways were used for explosive storage and demolition until the early 1950s. Today, the north part of the former airfield is known as Wickenby Aerodrome, a private airfield used as a flying school as well as a restoration place for vintage planes. Well, I've had a lovely day here at Wickenby. Thank you for watching. But before I go, I'll tell you perhaps the most famous ghost story attached to RAF Wickenby. RAF intelligence officer Michael Bentine was stationed at RAF Wickenby in the late autumn of 1943. Bentine would go on to become one of Britain's best-loved comic actors. He is best known as one of the founding members of The Goons, a surreal British radio comedy programme broadcast in the 1950s. However, for children of my generation, he is fondly remembered as the host of the children's programme Michael Bentine's Potty Time. Bentine claimed to have had the gift of premonition and clairvoyance, which sometimes betrayed him. As a briefings officer, he was closely associated with the air crews, but this had a loathsome side effect. Every night that the Wickenby wing was operational, Bentine would drop by the mess to check that all was well. He said, "Again and again, I would see the faces of one or other of these friends turn into a skull in front of my eyes, and I knew that he would die that night." But the incident, which stuck in his mind for the rest of his days, occurred one night when he arrived back at Wickenby after 48 hours leave in London. One of his best friends on the base was a navigator known as Pop, on account of him being in his mid-30s and the oldest navigator on the base. Pop had finished his first tour of 30 operations and was about to go on leave to see his wife and children. It was midnight and the airfield was covered in a blanket of snow. The moonlight was bright and the whole scene lit up in clear silvery light. Bentine was walking back to the Nissan hut that he shared with the air crew when he saw the tall mustachioed figure of Pop walking towards him. "Hi, Pop," he called in greeting. The figure seemed to acknowledge his presence, but carried on walking in the direction of his own hut, about 10 or 15 yards away. Exhausted after a long journey, Bentine entered his own hut and went straight to bed. In the morning at 6:30, he was woken by his Batman Charlie with a cup of tea, who said, "Bloody shame about Pop, nice bloke." Bentine asked what he meant, to which Charlie replied, "Of course you wouldn't know. He went out last night with a new crew to show him the ropes. I don't know what happened, but something went wrong and they crashed in the woods." Bentine replied, "What do you mean? I saw him last night." "You couldn't have, sir," Charlie insisted. "He was dead long before then." Bentine later wrote, "I had seen Pop the night before as clearly and distinctly as I saw Charlie that morning. The moonlight reflecting off the snow was too bright to allow any error of judgment in recognizing someone I knew so well. He recalled intelligence officers engaged in the training of agents saying that it was possible to disguise everything about a person except for the way they walk and their appearance from the back. People have a way of moving as individual as their fingerprints. I still have absolutely no doubt that I positively recognized Pop as he walked towards and away from me. In his book, The Door-Marked Summer, Bentine referred to his encounter with Pop as a genuine experience, and for the rest of his days he remained utterly convinced he had met his dead friend. Nearly every wartime airfield in the country has been the scene of ghostly activity in one form or another. So much tragedy occurred in these places during the war years. Bomber Command alone lost 55,000 aircrew, brave young men who sacrificed the best years of their lives. So it is no surprise that something of that tragedy remains.